So, welcome to the talk. I really believe that ideas change lives. How many people here would say that Angular has changed their life? Raise your hand. Don't be shy. I think that everybody could say that Angular has changed their life in a profound way. And I think it's safe to say that when Angular was just an idea in Miško's mind, I don't think he ever imagined that he would affect the lives of so many people. I think this conference is actually just profound in just irrefutable proof that an idea can impact a person's life. But at the same time, how many people have had a good idea that they let die because they were waiting for, yes, we've had good ideas and we let die because we're sitting around waiting for our Club Awesome badge to come in the mail.
Did you get yours, by the way?
So I have not gotten mine, but I do believe membership, you will know a member of Club Awesome by the amount of shiny clothes that they wear. So if anybody sees Ward Bell walking around, he is a regional director of...
There he is.
Ward, yes. Regional director, Club Awesome, right there. Shiny clothes. So I'm Lucas, and clearly by that criteria, I am not in Club Awesome. But I'd also like to introduce to you today one of the most unqualified programmers that I know. He has proven to me, he's taught me a very valuable lesson, and that is badges, we don't need no stinking badges. We're going to show you exactly what we mean by that in just a moment. But first, how many people here have heard of Plunker? I would say anybody who's been on the Angular site has seen it. It's pretty incredible. What most people do not know is that Plunker was created by an accountant in his spare time with no formal programming training, completely self-taught. And so I would like to introduce to you Geoff Goodman, who in my life has completely obliterated the false constraints and restrictions that I put on my life as a developer. Geoff. Yeah, give it up.
Thanks, guys. Thanks so much. So my name's Geoff Goodman, and sometimes it's tough to take Lucas seriously, but it's true. I'm an accountant. I work for Ernst & Young. All day I spend on Excel doing business valuations.
Why are you bragging about that right now?
But yeah, paper notes.
What an accountant.
So that being said, here I am at one of the best technical conferences in the world.
What
speaking
could
to you
possibly
today.
go wrong here?
Lucas, we went over this. I did a top-down risk assessment, and we covered everything.
Everything.
Well, almost everything. There's only one thing that could go wrong. There's one totally unpredictable variable to this equation. I think you guys know who it is. Lucas.
You have no idea. Mwah! Okay, so let's start from the beginning with how we met. A few years ago, I did a workshop for front-end masters, and I thought I was going to be so clever and aggressively reduce all my dependencies. And I was so clever, and I got all my dependencies down to one. One dependency, Plunker.
How'd that go?
Well, by one dependency, single dependency, I mean single point of failure. So as you can imagine, that on the day of the workshop, Plunker is totally down.
That didn't happen.
It totally did. Don't lie. And so I was furious. I was ready to sue this horrible company that was ruining my workshop. How unprofessional, that they can't even keep their site up. Well, after a series of Twitter exchanges, Geoff graciously agreed to help me with my problem after he got home from work, from his day job. Clearly, the window of opportunity to be useful had passed at that time. But what I think is incredible is that the site that I'd been using for months had actually been written on the train back and forth from Jeff's office. And so I think what's also incredible about that is you have a site that hundreds of thousands of people, I don't know the number, you're a numbers guy, obviously. Where's your spreadsheet with some of the traffic for Plunker? I want to see that.
So I'm not going to bore you guys with a spreadsheet, but there is this really cool tool, analytics. I'm sure you guys all love it. I am absolutely fascinated by this. At the beginning, I would stare hours and hours at analytics, totally blown away that 5 people could be on my website at the same time.
5?
Who are these people?
World.
Who are these people? How did they hear about Plunker? Do they like it? So one step led to another, and now anytime I go on analytics, what I see is something more like this. And that's something that makes me really, really proud. How can one humble accountant end up with a website that's among the top 10,000 most popular websites in the world?
And so this is an example of another idea changing somebody's life. So what I like about this is Jeff was an outsider to the programming community, that he was free to create something without worrying about what his programmer friends would think about him. He didn't have any programmer friends. And so he wasn't waiting for external validation to give him permission to go and build something awesome. He just did it.
And so that leads us to the one single most important point that we want to get across to you today. And that is, you do not need permission to be awesome.
True. I'll clap to that. So I want everybody for just a second to stop and think about, imagine the developer that they want to be. I'm going to let that sink in for a second. Just paint that picture. Now, we're friends here, and so I want you to be honest with yourself and think of the reason why we are not more like that developer. So, I cannot speak for everybody, but I can speak for myself. I put off being that developer and pursuing him in earnest because I did not feel qualified to be that version of myself.
So today we're going to share with you 3 simple guiding principles that we've been applying for the last couple of years and that we think are incredibly useful. And what's next?
And he gets his notes out. All right, so these ideas stem from feedback loops.
Yes.
So one of my favorite books in the world is Adapt by Tim Hartford. And this really crystallized my worldview on success. And the entire book is about feedback loops. Well, as software developers, we are very familiar with this concept. Why does agile software development work? Because of feedback loops. We do a meaningful unit of work, we put it in front of stakeholders, we get feedback, and then we have an opportunity to do even more meaningful units of work. Lean product development, same thing. We build something, we put it in front of a customer, we get feedback, and then we keep iterating until we get the product just right. We build something that the customer loves.
So I have absolutely no idea what Agile is, but this makes a lot of sense to me.
And so in a nutshell, you take an action, you get a response, you analyze that response, and then you decide on a new action. So this is really important because it doesn't matter about the quality or the outcome per se of your first action. All that matters is that you are committed to adapting and making an improved second action.
So I just want to reiterate that point and say that do not prevent yourself from taking that first action out of fear for the consequences of that action.
Say that again. One more time. I really like this.
Do not let the potential outcome of an action keep you from taking that action.
Thank you.
So if you embrace the concept of feedback loops,
I think that was a feedback loop in his mic.
yeah, on the left side.
Yeah.
If you understand the concept of feedback loops, you understand that you can take any action, no matter how ridiculous that action is, as long as you are willing to take the results of that action and adapt.
So that brings us to our first principle. Make mistakes.
The first rule of Club Awesome, we've heard, is not to try and be awesome.
So, Geoff, I think it's time for some real talk. So, surely you have at least one great story about some colossal mistake you made while putting Plunker together.
Yeah. So let's talk about how the first generation of baby plunks were made.
Kids, put your earmuffs on.
No, don't worry. I'm going to keep this classy. You guys have all heard of $resource. So I'm an accountant checking out this Angular docs, and I love programming, so I read everything. And I'm like, man, this is cool. All I have to do is create a JSON object that maps file names to file contents, take resource, post that to a simple Express server, and store that in memory at some random ID. When someone asks for it again, just serve it back.
So, wait a second. Are you saying that you stored all your plunks in memory?
Yeah?
I don't think that would scale very well. So, what happened if you needed to actually restart your server?
Well, that was a bit of a problem.
Clearly.
So,
It's obvious. Never restart your server, apparently.
Yeah, so it was a bit of a problem. So I was running on Node-Jitsu at the time, and I realized that between deploys, or between server restarts, there was one directory that was persisted. So I took the next logical step and just serialized the whole database into temp.
Oh, yes. I like that. So I'm mortified.
Well, and
I'm still mortified.
I just wanted to point out that, yeah, go for it.
He's going to point out that I'm going for it. Thank you, Geoff, for your permission. So
Skipping ahead.
I think I had that same reaction as everyone else did when he told me that, is that's amazing and mortifying. Like, it's really, it's pretty nutty.
So one of the earliest users of Plunker, and part of the reason it became popular, is because Igor was a really early user of Plunker and a huge fan.
He only knew.
And I'm sorry to say, Igor, but that's how your first plunks were stored.
You mad, bro? You guys might not even be friends after this talk. But I will give you credit for not waiting for the right way to build things.
Yeah, and that's the lesson here, is that something that works, kind of, is a whole lot more useful than something that doesn't even exist.
Exactly. Good point. So let me use a phrase that a finance guy might understand. Have you ever heard of technical debt?
Technical debt. So, yes. I would say that Plunker was financed on technical debt.
Yes. Clearly, we've made the case.
But it's online. It's useful. A lot of you guys are using it. And that's why I'm on stage here today.
So, speaking of useful, we can actually mitigate the risk of something breaking by using something that already exists and that we know works.
So that brings us to our second main principle, make compositions.
And so by this we mean find solutions that are already working and put them together in a way that approximates what we're trying to build. So this is good for two reasons. So the first reason, let us pretend for just a moment that I'm the smartest person in this room right now.
Well, that's a lot of pretending.
Let's pretend that Geoff is not such a smart mouth right now. I am the smartest person in the room, but I have no chance of competing against the collective intelligence and insight of any 10 people in this room. The reason being is that the opportunity for feedback loops and adapting is so much higher than a single individual trying to solve something by themselves.
And it's also a lot faster to make compositions. We're all here today because we love Angular, and we know that it can allow us to make things so much faster, right? And that's exactly what we're talking about right now. You use the tools that smart people have made to allow you to get feedback from your users faster.
And so, speaking of compositions, share with us some of the evolutionary progressions that Plunker has seen.
So, I think we would all agree that the setup I described earlier wasn't going to cut it. So what I did, and I'm sure all of you have experimented with this at some point, I just set up a very simple mean stack with ACE.
So I actually like to call this stack the Amen stack.
Just stop.
Don't judge me. So I think we are actually not telling the whole story here.
Yeah.
What did it really look like?
Well, okay, so it really looked a lot more like this.
So it's the mean stack.
Oh boy.
There's so much judging up here. So we don't have time to geek out on this,
Yeah.
but is this online for somebody to check out if they were interested?
Yeah, I'm not sure if any of you knew this, or if all of you knew this, but Plunker, the version that's online right now, is entirely open source. I will warn you, though, there'll be dragons and a whole lot of CoffeeScript. But no complaining.
So if you're tempted to complain...
So if you're tempted to complain, I don't want to hear even the slightest bit of ng what. If you're tempted
Plunker what? T-shirt time. Yeah!
Nice reflexes.
That's a little nod. Thank you, Shai.
If you want to change things, pull request.
Feedback loops for the wins. What is a pull request? It's a feedback loop.
And so back to the feedback loop. I started out with this horrible implementation, right? I made a whole lot of mistakes, but I learned a lot. I embraced compositions, put things together, and I kept refining what Plunker was made out of, right? As JavaScript programmers, we all know how lucky we are to have things like NPM, Bower, GitHub,
Usaurus, hashtag pro tip.
and Stack Overflow.
You get the idea.
Yeah. I can't even imagine the hours that I saved. I couldn't even made this without all this.
So,
I think we're running out of time.
all right, so we're almost out of time. Hi, Frosty. All right, we got one more point we got to make.
Yeah.
So, speaking of Frosty,
Yes.
this is our third and final principle. Make friends. So this is actually the principle that I believe the most in. The quality of our feedback loops are directly impacted by the quality of the people we surround ourselves with. Can I just have 2 more minutes? Just 2 more minutes.
Hurry up.
Making the right friends can impact us in very obvious ways.
Yeah, an obvious example is that Plunker is online and totally free for all of you because we made friends with the awesome people at MongoLab and at Modulus. A less obvious, but perhaps more important example is that it helped make Lukas a better person.
So I'm really embarrassed to say we actually have a very specific and historically documented example of this. But before I go any further, remember, you're on my side, okay? Next, here we go. So when Plunker went down, I did what every developer has been doing for hundreds of years. I got onto Twitter and I called somebody a not nice name. Geoff, being the classy fellow that he is, told me to be nice.
Lukas, being the classy-ish guy he is, totally apologized, and so mission accomplished.
And so that's where we became friends. I want to show you one more example of a feedback loop that changed my life.
It's done.
Yeah, all right, we're almost there.
Almost there. So I started blogging a few years ago, and not because I felt like I was qualified enough, but I felt like I was invisible enough. And so I was excited about Angular. I wrote a blog post, and what I did not know is that Angular was not quite as popular as it was today. So Igor had time to actually get into blog post and make comments. And so he dropped this epic gem in a blog post that I wrote.
It's a gem. That looks a little bit more like a compliment sandwich.
So that's exactly what it was. Very nice post, a bunch of corrections and clarifications. 42 lines later, he then tries to smooth things over by offering me a free T-shirt.
That worked?
Totally worked. And so instead of being mortified, I was actually excited to have that feedback loop and to improve. And so I continued to write barely passable blog posts, and Mishko and Igor, I just trademarked that, by the way, would come in and they'd clean up my little messes that I left as I wrote blog posts. And that led to us becoming friends, which, next slide, led to this email.
Wait, is that the infamous front-end masters workshop that we
Of doom.
Oh, boy.
So I am actually here right now because Mishko was too busy, and I hit reply before Joe or David could even blink. Sorry, guys, you missed out on that opportunity.
Hey, we're really getting close to time.
All right, we are actually almost out of time. So just real quick, let's do a quick recap. This is a simple framework that Geoff and I use, and we've applied it to our lives, and it's extremely effective.
Yeah, the first step is to just do something.
Guys,
All right, come on.
Just do something. Go make a mistake. You have to start that feedback loop somewhere.
And once you know that something works,
Or does not, in a lot of cases, iterate and change your composition.
guys,
all right, 1 second.
Yeah.
And when you really get stuck, it's your friends that are going to make a difference. I think we can finish this. So,
Guys.
remember when I said I would show you exactly what I mean when I said badges? We do not need no stinking badges.
Oh, boy.
I think it's time for a demonstration of what it looks like to make mistakes, make a composition, and make a lot of friends. Hit it! That's right. Woo!
I think Lucas is a member of Club Awesome now. So before I let you guys go, just one last thing. Our friend Ari Lerner, who really wanted to be here but couldn't, he's the author of the NG book. I'm sure you guys all know what that is. And so he's offered to give 3 free copies to the 3 best stories we hear from you guys posted to Twitter on #NoBadges. Don't be afraid, no judgment. Send us the craziest, worst, most broken, but cool hacks you have, and the 3 best will get free book. So thank you guys.